Hey, there we go.
Perfect. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you might hear a few pots and pans banging because in Victoria it's 7 o'clock and everyone bangs their pots to support the healthcare workers. So it's
Right.
7 o'clock on the dot and everyone's banging their pots, which is awesome.
Oh, that is awesome. Um, well, thank you, April, for being open to doing this with me. And we actually have people joining in, which is awesome because this is my first IG Live, and I think you mentioned it's yours.
Yeah, exactly. So we're
Yeah,
newbies all across the board.
newbie. So we have come prepared. So anyone that wants to join us, we know,
I hope everyone is ready, yeah, to get
yeah, as riveting as tax stuff is, you riveting. So that
yeah.
helps too.
Not
Um,
saying that you need alcohol to talk about taxes, but I mean, it's not exactly the most exciting.
Um, so as a small business owner myself, I've had a number of questions throughout the last month as the support programs roll out. A lot of our followers are also small business owners, so I
Yeah,
imagine I'm not the only ones with those questions.
yeah.
So we have a number of people that submitted some really great questions, but I think I'll let you take the floor first to kind of give a bit of a brief insight into your background.
For sure, yeah. So myself and my business partner Joanna, we are accountants. Together, we have the firm Accountwell, and we specialize in working with small business owners, both sole proprietors and people who are incorporated. And we work with clients on their full cycle accounting, their GST returns, their payroll, their tax filings, financial statements, tax planning. So our client base is truly rocked by the pandemic and what's happened. And clients across the board have seen their businesses close, their revenues completely drop off. So it's given us an opportunity to really try and reach out to clients and help dissect, what all these programs mean and how businesses, what they can do to survive and see the other side of this.
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to get right into our questions. Um, so the first one we had is if I quit my job, can I still qualify for, and actually I have to say first, is it CERB or Kerb?
Subjective, I suppose.
Okay.
So the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, I like to go by Kerb. I think it's a little bit more catchy, I suppose.
Okay.
But the short answer to that is no. People cannot quit their job and then go to benefits. If people feel unsafe, going into work because of health conditions, it is important to reach out to your employer. But as far as CRA is concerned, you have to lose your job for reasons outside of your control in order to qualify.
Okay. Okay. If I received a double Kerb payment, should I still submit my application for the next 4-week period or hold off?
That's a good question. Yeah, so there was a lot of talk around when Kerb was first launched. A lot of people were receiving double payments, and there's a little glitch in the system where people could apply through CRA and also their My Account, like Service Canada and My Account, and their system wasn't catching this. So people were applying twice, and 2 applications were received. So people were receiving $2,000 payments times 2 for period 1, which ran from March 15th until April 11th. So to answer the first part of that is, first and foremost, you need to repay that double payment.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, as much as we'd love to keep an extra couple of grand from Service Canada, we know CRA does not hand out free
Yeah.
money, so to speak. So if you Google, just a quick Google, CRA or Kerb, repay or return Kerb, there's 2 options. So you can either mail back one of your checks. I know for our client base, no one really operates on checks, but if there are some people who receive checks, you can literally mail it back to them.
Okay.
Starting May 11th, people can return or repay their Kerb through their online My Account. So if you received Kerb through a direct deposit, which most people did, you can return it electronically as well, and they are planning to roll that out in about 2 weeks here.
Okay.
So the second part of that question is yes, so you should repay your double payment. And then if you're still eligible for period 2, then you would reapply. So you don't want to take your double payment and say, okay, I got it twice, once for April, once for May. You do want to repay and then reapply.
Reapply. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm currently receiving Kerb benefits, but I am recalled back to my employer's payroll under CEWS, this is all an accountant.
Right? I know.
And I'm not an accountant. Looking for a realtor, I can help you there.
Yeah.
What do I do with the $2,000 payment?
So because of the timing of how everything was rolled out, Kerb was launched before. And to clarify, CEWS is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy.
Right.
Again, two different pronunciations. Some people were saying CEWS and some people were saying CEWS. I like to go with CEWS. So if anyone hears CEWS, we're talking about the wage subsidy, the 75%.
Okay.
So again, because for CRA, period 1 for Kerb ran from March 15th to April 11th. And now we're at April 28th. So we're currently in period 2, which is April 12th to May 9th. So a lot of people in the first week or so of, or the third week of April, were reapplying for their Kerb benefit for period 2. But since the wage subsidy we now know is launched, businesses could even start applying as early as Monday. Businesses are starting to recall employees, even though they're already on Kerb. So again, because of the timing, people could be in that window of period 2 receiving Kerb, but might get a call or an email from their employer saying, hey, we're going to put you back on payroll under the wage subsidy. So very common. CRA is like super aware of this. So well, I should also mention, employers aren't going to report to CRA that they're bringing you back on the wage subsidy. It's up to the employees to basically discover or report that, hey, I received Kerb, I've been recalled back to work, I'm not actually eligible anymore. Okay. And that's when they can backtrack to their repay or return Kerb. So you have to return your $2,000 payment, and then you'll receive your wage subsidy payments from your employer.
Okay, and if someone fails to do that now, it will come back to haunt them.
Yes, good question. So it is highly, highly, highly recommended at the very latest to repay or return your Kerb prior to December 31st. Obviously, CRA would prefer you do it sooner rather than later because they will come knocking. Yeah. But with people, like when you receive your $2,000 payments, CRA, that is taxable income to people. It's not just money that you never have to report and pay taxes on. CRA will issue you like a T4 slip or potentially a T4E slip. They will issue a T slip that gets included as income on your personal tax return. Right. Okay. So because personal taxes run January to December, those T slips will be issued for that period. So it's really important they get the numbers right for 2020, so your T slip isn't wrong and you have to adjust it in 2021.
Okay. Yeah. Sense. If you earn $1,000, are you still eligible for the full $2,000?
Good question. Oh, before I continue, I think there's a question box on your screen, Ashley, or potentially for people who are viewing. Yeah. If people have questions as we're going along, they can definitely chime in. If you have a specific question you want to see if we can address, feel free to ask. It should be a little box with like a question mark sign on it. Yeah, hopefully people can see it. So CRA announced, I want to say about a week ago. I mean, it's hard to kind of keep track of time. Things change every day, but CRA announced that, okay, we understand some people have little bits of income. And there were cases where, say, like a freelance, graphic designer, someone said, okay, can you do a job for $500? And they would literally have to say, no, I can't accept this job because on Kerb, you can't have any income. It's binary. It's either you qualify or you don't. Right. So CRA said, okay, we'll let you, earn up to $1,000 in income and still qualify for the full $2,000. I don't know if it's quite generous enough, but it's something that people can work with. So if you're a freelancer or you are a subcontractor or you're a sole proprietor and you have a little bit of income, as long as it's under $1,000, you'll still qualify for the full $2,000 Kerb payment for that period.
Okay. And actually, so on that note of sole proprietor, I'm going to skip to that question. Yeah. Can a sole proprietor qualify for CEBA?
Good question. So it is explicitly stated, and some of these programs, they're just for corporations or just for individual taxpayers. So it's really common and totally okay for people to be confused with what program they could even look at or begin with. Unfortunately, CEBA is the Canada Emergency Business Account. That's the really attractive $40,000 loan that a lot of people are talking about, and I have lots of information to share on that one. But CEBA is specifically for corporations only.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the CEWS, the wage subsidy, that is one that sole proprietors can be eligible for, but the CEBA is just for corporations, unfortunately.
Okay. Because yeah, that question came up in the box there too. Once the economy reopens, should we be expecting, I think we all know the answer to this, an increase in audits?
Oh yeah, CRA, I was reading an article today actually. CRA is poised to be the top employer for the next couple of years because of how many audits they're going to be doing. I think something that's not really being discussed right now is the fact that because there's so many people applying for these benefits, it really does kind of open the door for CRA to then look at accounts down the road. So for example, think about the millions of taxpayers who have applied for Kerb. And all of a sudden, because they've applied and received that benefit, CRA now has basically like a right to look in and make sure that taxpayer is actually eligible. So for people who aren't claiming all their income or maybe are overinflating expenses, CRA now has a reason to ask you, hey, you need to substantiate this claim. A couple of the programs that will be very highly audited are the CEBA, so the $40,000 loan, which we can go into a little bit more detail after, and Kerb. CRA, as much as I like to knock them, they do have some very sophisticated algorithms and systems. They can literally, run a file through their programs, and they can verify income. And one thing that's important to remember with Kerb is that no matter your situation, whoever applies gets accepted. You get your $2,000. So there's no verification on the onset. You apply, you're now attached to the program. CRA can now verify that down the road, and they will come asking eventually.
So if you've applied and then thought, uh-oh, I shouldn't apply,
Crap, yeah.
the money right away, are you still on their radar?
Yeah, so that's why I'm, trying to advise people like, look, if you know right away that you applied an error or that you received a duplicate payment or you got recalled back to work, like any of those reasons, just repay it right away. Get in the good books, get like the pat on the head rather than the pat on the wrist. Because anytime you can kind of, stay off the hit list of CRA, the better. And I know that's a huge stressor for small business owners right now. People want to make the right decision, but there's so much information out there. It's like, it's overwhelming. It's how do I make the right decision?
Yeah.
And no one wants to cross the line or step on any toes, but that's why it's important to try and get a really good grasp on how, like the mechanics of these programs and how you can actually become eligible so you don't have to lose sleep. And I know as business owners, it's very easy to lose sleep over things, especially when it comes to your finances or anything with CRA.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What can CEBA, so the $40,000 loan, proceeds used for?
So this is something, again, that's very, very, very important to remember. A lot of people see like, maybe from their Aunt Jane twice removed or their cousin down the street and everyone's like, hey, there's this great $40,000 loan. You can get 10,000 free. And it's like, why wouldn't you apply? And I get it. It does sound very attractive, but you really need to look at the fine print before you apply. Because again, this is something CRA is going to audit a lot down the road.
Yeah.
The $40,000 loan, even before you get into like what you can use it for, in order to qualify for it, you have to have a payroll expense in 2019. So a lot of business owners, and to be honest, this is like a huge chunk of our clients, take their income as dividends from their corporation. And if you're a business owner, like, for example, like you're a realtor, you have a corporation, you pay yourself, you take a dividend, and you didn't pay any payroll, you automatically can't qualify for this one. So you have to make sure you have payroll, and you have to be a corporation. So you have to have like a corporate, bank account through your financial institution. And there's a term in the loan that says what the proceeds can be used for and what it can't be used for. So what it can be used for is non-deferrable operating expenses. That's the accounting term. What it means in the average business owner term is expenses you can't move to another period and you need to incur them in order to keep your business operational. So for example, things like rent or property taxes, insurance, utilities. Most of our, or almost all of our clients are on like a monthly accounting package. So our monthly fees, that.
I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Our corporation or our clients, they have ongoing monthly fees, anything to keep the corporation active and operational. Very important things that it cannot be used for is paying down prior debts. So if you're a business owner and you had 10 grand on your corporate credit card from expenses in January, February, March, you can't use it to pay that down. Another common question is, hey, I'm going to get this $40,000 loan and I'm going to use it to pay down my credit line. Big no, you cannot do that. Or hey, I'm going to get this 40,000 and I'm going to, take it out personally, use it for some personal expenditures. Big no. The way that CRA will probably review this down the road is, and it might sound a little mundane, but you want to be able to prove very clearly what your $40,000 has been used for. So make sure your books are pristine. That is very, very important. Make sure your books are accurate, your T's are crossed, I's are dotted. I have heard people going as far as like opening a separate bank account, the $40,000 goes in there and only expenses, like eligible expenses, are withdrawn from there. So yeah, it's very important to keep that very clean once those funds go in, because CRA, can very easily request that you prove where the funds were used for.
Okay. Yeah, because that was one where I think it says you can repay it at any time, right?
Yeah. So as long as it's the 30,000 is repaid by December 31st, 2022, interest free, then that last $10,000 chunk or the last 25,000 is basically forgiven by the government. So you can see why a lot of business owners would want to, use this program.
So, but you can't take it, keep it for a month, and then give back the 30 because you just wanted that 10 interest free.
Yeah, it's hard to see because again, you'd have to prove that 30,000 or the original amount was used for something. So if it just sits in your account and you can't prove that it was used for anything, CRA probably won't be too thrilled with that.
Okay. If I incorporate my business, am I still eligible for Kerb?
Kerb, yeah. So say you're a sole proprietor, for example, like you're a photographer and you're a and you've kind of been flirting with the idea of incorporating, maybe my business is growing, all things considered, but you were thinking about incorporating. Now you have a bunch of time on your hands and you're thinking, I'm going to revamp my company, I'm going to incorporate. So yeah, you would still qualify for Kerb as long as once the corporation is set up, you don't take any funds from it to pay yourself.
Okay.
So if the corporation is set up, and for, I'm not a lawyer, but for legal terms, the corporation is its completely separate entity. It's like another person. It files its own tax return, has its own liability, has its own bank accounts. So that corporation can function so long as you're not taking money out from it and exceeding that, $1,000 threshold.
Okay. I love how much you love this stuff.
Oh yeah, I could talk about taxes all day, and I love that people are tuned in to hear about it, because this is something I could talk all day about it. And even with clients, I could easily get on the phone and just lose track of time because there's so much to talk about, and I feel like it's such a practical thing that can really change how people interact, like with their accounting or with their business. So yeah, I'm happy people are tuned in.
When we talked this morning for like 45 minutes and I asked all my questions, you got me excited about all this thing, right?
Yeah. Taxes don't have to be scary. So
okay, next question. If I'm in yeah, I'll try to remember that. If I am I still eligible for Kerb? So it's sitting in your corporation and you don't pay yourself personally.
Good question. Yeah. And that's a really common question, because if you're not a sole proprietor, you're probably incorporated. So again, it kind of circles back to the fact that the corporation really is like it's in taxes, has its own liability, so for that reason, Technically, yes, like the corporation could earn more than $1,000 per month, but as long as you don't take it out personally, you would technically still qualify for Kerb. The key point is just to make sure it stays in the corporation.
Let me just see. Is paying vendors for supplies related to your business considered a non-deferrable expense? So I think there could be a strong argument for, like, if you have to put gas in your vehicle and the vehicle is owned by the corporation, or you have to pay for supplies because your business is active. Like if you're just buying supplies to put them in inventory and sell down the road, that probably wouldn't be reasonable to say that that's like for an operating expense for this period. But if you're buying supplies to fill like a kit and then sell it to clients online, I would argue that that would be like an operating expense. So yeah, that's a good one. Let me see if there is another one here. Okay. Is the additional child benefit amount going to be taxable? Good question. Yeah. So how it works, there's two programs that were basically enhanced, meaning they existed already, and CRA or the government is just going to increase the amount that people get due to COVID-19. So one of those was the child tax benefit. So if you are an individual or a family that receives the child tax benefit, you don't have to apply to get the extra payment. And I want to say the amount is up to $300 per child. So if you're already receiving the Canada child benefit, that will automatically be increased. And I want to say 2 years ago when the Liberals changed it, it became a non-taxable amount. So as far as we know, that enhanced payment is not taxable to individual taxpayers. Okay, perfect. Let me see. One other program that hasn't fully been launched yet, but has been talked about, is the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. So the CECRA, I would say, is probably a fair term for it. Again, that's a program that's been discussed, but hasn't been launched yet. So I can definitely give some information on that one too for anyone who has like a commercial space.